All right, this group, this time we're going to make our pralines. It's probably the most popular recipe that we do around here, and it's really very simple. You're going to follow exactly the recipe we put online, but we start with 3/4 of a stick of, we use unsalted butter. You can use salted, it won't matter. If you have dietary restrictions and can't use dairy products, use Earth Balance. The 6 ounces of Earth Balance will, is it, yeah, 6 ounces. No. Yeah, 6 ounces of 3/4 of a stick, yeah, is what you need. You use the same thing. Now we're going to use whole milk here, but in that case you could also use almond milk, rice milk, any of those things will work. So 3/4 of a stick of butter, 1/2 cup of milk. Now these are measuring ladles that I work with, guys. So they're really great to work with. They're very, very accurate. I find them, they work good for liquid or dry measures. So I really enjoy working with them because they're easy to hang up, get out of the way, and not have to worry about it. So we've got our butter and our milk together. We're going to add our vanilla in this. This makes technically what we call our liquid kit. And remember, when you're cooking, particularly in baking, candy making, all your liquids go together in one bowl. And really all your dries go together in another bowl. But I have found, because this pot is a little bit narrower than a lot of the ones I work with, I don't like to pre-mix my, sugar and pecans together. 3/4 of a cup light brown sugar, 1.5 cups of white sugar. When you measure light brown sugar, remember you have to measure it very, very, very tightly packed, because it doesn't, got to get all the, got to get it all down in there tight so you get an accurate measuring of it. Okay, then, you get rid of this glove. Then what you're going to do, the way I work this, is I'm going to put 3/4 of a cup light brown sugar into my pot, and then I'm going to come back, and over the top of that I'm going to sprinkle the 1.5 cups of white sugar. This way I'm making really sure that none of these sugar crystals hit the side of the pot, because when they hit the side of the pot they solidify, they don't melt. Then you cut a canal right through the middle, let the liquids come between the two halves, and then you pull the sugar into that canal. Don't stir. When you stir, you sling sugar, and you get sugar on the side of the pot, solidifying. It's going to tell you that the candy's ready to go out before it actually is. So go ahead and mix this together once it's melted. You want to make sure you're using a wooden spoon. Wood does not conduct heat, so it can stay in the pot, and at the same time, it has a nice long handle to it, so I'm not going to get spit at or get hit with hot sugar when it spits. Then, very accurately and carefully measuring in, and for me that's going to be 1, and then 2, and then 3 handfuls of pecans. Your recipe calls for 1.5 cups. This method, the way I do it, I actually probably put in a little bit more than 1.5 cups. And now all we're going to do is very gently stir this. Just around like this. It's going to be done on high heat now. I was doing it early on low heat, but now I'm going to turn it up to high because all the ingredients are in the pot. No sugars on the side. And we're just going to continuously stir this until it comes to a rolling boil. And one of the reasons I got the long handle, like I said, is I can move my hand up as it starts to boil and get my hand out of the way of the popping sugar. You can see where I've already made a mess on my counter here, on my cooktop, and I hate that. I hate making messes and not cleaning them up immediately, so got to take a minute and do that. This is the hardest part in class, is people standing, or me standing around trying to keep people interested or looking good for 3 minutes and getting it going. So this way it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to entertain you. Now pralines actually began in France not as a candy. They were never supposed to be a sweet just treat. They were designed as aperitifs, palate cleansers. They were designed to get rid of the flavor of the first course of the meal before you move to second and third courses of meals. And when they did it, they dropped almonds and hazelnuts in. Now when you go to Europe now and you ask for a praline, they're going to ask you what kind. Because for them, a praline is pretty much anything dipped in a chocolate. So it's a big difference is taken over now in what we call praline and what they call praline. But we're just going to blend this together. We're not lifting it up and looking at it. All that would do would be adding air in. We're not folding it. We're just stirring it around so that the whole pot comes to a rolling boil at the same time. What's really nice, and why I like this pot, there's several like it, is the heat comes all the way up to the side now. It's not like the old Revere wares where they only heated heavily across the bottom. This heat's pretty much the same all the way across the bottom and up the sides, which makes it a lot easier to get things going and to boils faster. It also means you don't have to worry so much about it sticking on the bottom, which is really good. All of these pots that we're working with are designed to be worked on these induction-ready stoves. So if we take the pot off, the circuit is disconnected and the burner goes off, which makes it really good if you got kids because it slows that heat fairly quickly down there. See, this is when the watch pot never boils. We keep our pecans refrigerated for most of the time. And since we do that, it lowers the temperature a little bit when you add them in there. Now we're using non-roasted pecans. I would use a combination of both roasted and non-roasted. The roasted will be real crispy in here and hold on to their flavor, where the raw pecans will release that pecan oil out into the flavor of the praline. I think that's one of the things that I like best about doing them at home, is because I have those roasted and non-roasted pecans to work with. All right, this is starting to get ready to boil here, guys. So we're going to get our hand out of the way here in a minute. You can almost hear it boiling. But I like, people always say, well, what's a rolling boil? Is that a rolling boil? I always wait till it spits at me. Once it spits at me, I consider I've got myself a rolling boil. Because it's spitting from the bottom up when it does that. Okay, it's starting to spit inside the pot. It'd be great if we could get one. There you go, one came out. We can get another one real fast here, not overcook this. Okay, because I want it to do it, it won't do it. There's one over there. All right, that's a rolling boil. It's spitting around the edges of the pot. So turn it to medium heat, and then set a timer for 3 minutes. 3 minutes, rolling boil like this will be 238, 240 degrees, or softball stage every single time. If you have a candy thermometer, certainly use it. It'll work well. The recipe says to continuously stir. With these new pots, see, I could pick this one up and take it home with me, the way they're heating now. I don't have to worry about that. What you might want to do if you're concerned is just kind of scrape across the bottom like this. Again, avoiding stirring at this point so you don't stir any air in to lower the temperature. But it's doing its thing. It's going to be okay. We're not going to worry about it too much. And in 3 minutes, we'll be able to cool them down and put them out. Not going to be a big problem. We also do chocolate pralines. Maybe we'll do another episode where we just do a batch of chocolate, because it's really simple. You do exactly the same thing I'm doing right now. And then when we go to cool them down, because you have to cool these down before you can put them out, that recrystallizes the sugar and gets it setting up so you can pick it up. You would drop in about 3 ounces of a good Belgian baking chocolate. You don't want to use a powder because it dries it too much. You want something that has a little bit of creaminess into it, like a baking chocolate would have. All right, we got less than a minute now, or a minute I should say. And then these will be ready to go. See what I said, how hard it is to just stand here and do this without having anything to do for 3 minutes? It's tough. And nobody realizes how long 3 minutes is till you have to do this. I could probably turn around and wash some dishes up, or walk across the room. Oh, tell you about what I could do is tell you about putting it out. When it goes out into sheet pan liners or parchment paper. And I think the recipe we send out gives you a recipe that says to do waxed paper, and you can still use waxed paper. It's a lot more work. You got to put a newspaper down first, then the wax paper, and then a light layer of butter across that wax paper. Because otherwise, when the candy hits it, it melts the wax onto your counter and onto the bottom of the candy. By using parchment, and it is available everywhere now. It's not like when I first started taking classes. The only place you could buy parchment paper was from the teacher who was instructing that class. Now it's available in the grocery stores. You can get it in rolls, you can get it in sheets. It's all available. I suggest investing in it. It's great for lining pans for baking on. When I do my quiches at home, they're all on top of a piece of parchment. So if they should overflow or leak, it's on the parchment paper. Cleanup is beautiful. It's really easy to take care of. So they're multi-purpose, but they're really great for candy making because you don't melt that wax. All right, we're almost ready. Scrape across the bottom, like I said, if you're concerned. This way you can see that all those dry ingredients that worked into the butter and milk mixture, dried that out. Now the sugars have melted, and through this 3 minutes, those sugars are starting to fuse together so that it's going to start to thicken back up again. There's my 3-minute logo, 3-minute timer. Shut it off. If you have a candy thermometer, certainly check it. Oh no! I can't believe I didn't do this and have it ready for you guys. I am so sorry. You need a glass of cold water, ready to go, so that you can, if you don't, all right, come on. So if you don't have a candy thermometer, you can drop it into a glass of cold water. And that's what you do right at 3 minutes, okay? So take a little bit of the candy, don't waste a lot of it or your pecans, and let it kind of drip into your glass. And you see as it goes down in there, it's going to form little, well, see, my water's not super cold, but you can see the little soft balls going through there. Okay, now drop your pecans in, because that's the real key. Now this is cooled enough, you can reach your hands inside of it, and reach it up against the side of the glass. And if the sugar will glue your pecans onto the side of the glass, that's softball stage. So it's really easy to do. Make sure you have good cold water. That really wasn't cold enough. So this is ready. Everybody's dying for a praline, so you kind of hurry up to put them out. And that little bit that I put down will not get hard. You got to work that air back in here. It's this air going back into the mixture that causes sugar crystallization. You can lick it up, pick it up and look at it. You can fold it, you can whip it, you can do whatever you want. Leave the pot on an angle like this, get some air across the bottom, helps cool it. And whip this around until you can hear or feel sugar on the side of the pot when you scrape the pot with your spoon. Until you hear it or feel it, you got to keep cooling it down like this. This is the harder part. You know, my grandmother, my Belgian grandmother, was a great cook. Little bitty tiny lady, beautiful, beautiful lady. And when she was 82 or 83, she quit cooking altogether. And suddenly, overnight, it seemed like she had these big, fat arms. And I couldn't figure out where that came from. I know now that I've been cooking. It's like a weightlifter. You do all this exercise, you use those muscles one way, building them up, and then when you quit using them, they turn to flab. So I've got to keep cooking for the rest of my life so I don't get big flabby arms. This is also when you would drop that chocolate in. Let's see if I've got any crystal. No, not yet, so I'm going to stir a little bit more. Oh, don't spill it out. Not a very good left-handed stir. guys are going to be able to hear this. That's the sugar crystal I'm looking for. So we're ready to put these guys out now. Pull everything down to the edge of the pot. Don't hold the pot like this for very long, like I did. I made the mistake of doing it. Now basically my left hand doesn't really work that way at all. Pull it all down. Don't stir. Put your spoon in, put it back out, and put your praline down. And go quickly, because this sets up fairly quickly in the pot. And when it sets up, you're not going to be able to get them out of the pot. And I always do rows of 5. That way I can tell my count. And also if anybody in the class is going to get one or not, because if you don't have enough, you got to make another pot. You can't just pour these out, guys. Don't stir now, just poke it in. You can't just pour it out. They're not hardball stage, so the candy doesn't hold together. It's much softer and more brittle. You could actually take and put some go to hardball stage, then throw some baking soda in this and pretty much get a pretty nice pecan brittle out of it. A little extra work, a little longer cooking time, but you can convert this very quickly. 35 to 40 pralines about this size is what I generally get out. Remember, those pecans float, so you got to stop and push them back down in, because if you don't, you're going to end up with all your pecans in the first couple of rows, and there won't be any for the last rows, and you'll just have flat sugar, what's the word I'm looking for? Rounds of sugar, anyway. Like a little flat galette kind of thing. And again, this is kind of something that's fun to do as a family thing, because you can take turns stirring it. And of course, at the very end, you can figure out a clever way to get one of the kids to maybe do all the dishes if they get the right to lift the pot. See, I'm almost out of pecans here, guys. I'm going to go up to the top, put my last praline in that empty space up there. And what I've done here in order to get this into the picture, guys, is I've put these out on a metal tray, and metal's going to get hot on me, so it's going to take a little bit longer for these guys to set up. These granite and marble surfaces, if that's what you have at home, are really, really nice to work with because they don't retain heat, and they'll set up very quickly. All right, here's the first one I put out. That's all this one will ever do. It'll never get harder than that. Let's see if this first one's ready to pick up here. Almost, not quite. Needs a couple more minutes, but then this last one is in pretty much the same shape. So we'll give these a couple more seconds to heat up, to cool down and set up, and then we'll be able to pick them up and put them out on a tray for you guys to look at. Okay, easiest thing to do, not a difficult process. It just takes a little bit of timing, and you're set to go. Easy enough. Let me let them cool, and then